final score: Wrexham 1, Chesterfield 1. Well, we played our get out of jail free card there, I think, didn't we? Wow. Um, that was a poor performance. Chesterfield, I admit, are good and are in good form, although they had dropped 5 points out of 6 due to a predilection for letting in late goals over the last two matches. But still, they played a lot better on the night than we did, and it was very frustrating. Big selection news was that Ben Tozer was fit, of course, having been stretchered off on Saturday and looking in an awful state. Turns out he was all right. Rather peculiarly, he woke up the next morning apparently and just felt a bit stiff, so he was fine. Sadly, not such good news for Luke Young, who's out for a while, it would seem. And so Young was replaced by Devontae Redmond in the only alteration from the side that never was at Aldershot. Bryce Hosanna, therefore, is making his debut again. And we started really well. Fantastic crowd. First 9,000 plus crowd we've had since the Boston United game in 2007. First, as Colin Henry's worked out, midweek league crowd above 9,000 since 1979, and the atmosphere was fabulous, and the first 5 minutes were textbook to what we were looking to achieve: fast paced, putting Chesterfield under pressure, Jordan Davis doing everything, hitting a magnificent ball with the outside of his foot in the first minute to send Susanna around the back of the defence, crunching him with tackles. Oh, it was something to behold, with the crowd loving every second of it. In the third minute, we nearly went ahead as well. Mullen holding the ball up well, then an intelligent pass to put Hosanna in on the right side of the box, and he cut inside, drove the ball across goal, beat the keeper Loach, but it was cleared off the line and put behind for a corner. That corner was swung in by Davis. It was a vicious delivery. It was quite a blustery night. I don't know if that really played much of a part in our performance, because Chesterfield coped with it a lot better. But the ball swirled nastily pretty much from the moment it left his foot. You could see it was going somewhere awkward, and Loach, staggering, stumbling and stretching backwards, just couldn't quite reach it, and the corner hit the bar and bounced away and eventually went safe. But then in the fifth minute, pretty much the first time Chesterfield had crossed the halfway line, they scored. Ball was worked over to the right hand side, and a daft free kick, in all honesty, was given away by Redmond, who raced across to close down a player who was going nowhere and was facing the stand, and ran into his back and gave away a very soft free kick, and Wrexham are punished. King has got extremely good set piece delivery. He swept the ball into the far post. Gunnington nodded the ball into the goal mouth, and his fellow centre back Kerr toe poked it home from close range. Leighton no chance, and Wrexham from that point just dissolved, in all honesty. Chesterfield was superior. They got the ball down and worked it through the midfield well. Wrexham's midfield found itself retreating more and more and hitting hopeful long balls forwards. I had great sympathy for the two strikers. I mean, Hyde was battling manfully against the three central defenders, and he won his fair share, and he held things up sometimes, but he wasn't getting accurate service. He was battling against the odds. And Mullen, even more so, because his game isn't to be fighting 30-70 balls with 6'5" centre backs. We had to get into his feet, and we created nothing in the rest of the half. In all honesty, we didn't really create pressure much either. We couldn't hold on to the ball. It was a problem. There was a lot of heart in the Wrexham performance, by the way. A lot of crunching into tackles, a lot of fight, but the actual structure wasn't there. And although people have criticised Young this season, I think he was missed in midfield, to be honest. Chesterfield, actually, despite feeling very much on top, didn't create as many chances as it sort of felt like at the time to me. They were winning a lot of the ball in midfield, and that midfield battle was taking place halfway at Wrexham's half as well, and that was causing a sense of danger. Shimanga was looking good, just constantly trying to run down channels and around the sides of centre-backs and trying to stretch and running behind. In the first half, Kellerman in centre mid had quite a good game in terms of sort of physically getting the better of Redmond and getting the ball forwards. From one of those occasions, he won a header, nodded it into Shimanga on a left channel, and he drove into that channel, got close in on goal, drove a powerful shot, good save by Leighton, who got down low to his left. He could only push it back in the goal mouth, but Hayden was there to tidy things up. Then another big moment about 4 minutes after that, just after the half-hour mark, when Tozer drove the ball forwards where it hit Redmond and span backwards into the Wrexham half. Shamanga was played in one-on-one against Leighton, but with a tight angle. And luckily for Wrexham, Harry Lennon's pace came to the rescue. Superb acceleration by him to catch Shamanga, who was quick. Shamanga's still got the shot off, but Lennon's pressure forced him wide into an even tighter angle. Leighton was able to spread himself and save. Chesterfield did shout for a penalty. It certainly wasn't. It was very good defended by Lennon, who certainly leaned on his man, but not to the extent that it wasn't allowed. And then in the 40th minute came the moment that really should have ended the game. It was a ball into the box. Redmond headed it clear. Wrexham tried to get out. Kellerman knocked it back in. Redmond had an easy header 30 yards out to head it clear, but misjudged the ball completely as it span up off the ground and just nodded it down sideways. Kellerman then helped it on to Shamanga, running in on goal. Now, Shamanga certainly was getting to the ball first, but he was running left to right into the penalty area and across the goal. Leighton committed himself to the challenge, went to ground. Probably shouldn't have done. He was a little bit further away from the ball than I think he'd realised, but he committed himself. He took Shamanga's legs, and despite Wrexham's protests, to me, it looked like a clear penalty. And, well, he sort of thought, well, this is it. We don't look like we're creating any chances at the moment. 2-0 down before half time. It's going to be a major issue. Shamanga stepped up. 9 goals out of 9 so far games this season. He drove it to the right, but didn't quite find it, took it inside the post, and Leighton got across and made a good save, and Wrexham was still in the game. Second half, well, it began with a substitution. Jamie Record had hurt himself in a really fierce tackle that he made, and although he managed to get on till half time, he then had to be withdrawn. Tyler French came on to replace him. That meant that he went at right wing back, and Bryce Hosanna went on to the left. And Wrexham had a promising early moment. A corner from Davis from the right hand side, swung into the near post. Hyde got it well inside the 6-yard box and planted a firm header on it, but his defender was too close, got tight to him and deflected the header over the bar for another corner. And then the pattern was sort of set for most of the second half, because for the next 20 minutes, Wrexham weren't able to mount pressure, really, weren't able to get things going or keep possession that well. But Chesterfield didn't create anything at all either. And I wonder whether this is the point that James Rowe will really regret in this match. Not that they didn't score more goals when they were on top and creating chances in the first half, but that in the second half they seemed to opt to control the game. Maybe gave us a bit more respect than our performance than I deserved. And they were a little bit conservative. Their substitutions maybe a little conservative. And yeah, the game drifted along. Looked like they were going to coast to a 1-0 win. Wrexham started to make progressive alterations. The first one in the 69th minute was to bring Liam McAlinden on for Redmond, which dropped Davis a little deeper, but kept the same shape, and it didn't have a huge impact, in all honesty. 5 minutes later, Danny Rowe, who we all know can strike with real power from either foot from distance, really ripped in a typical 25-yarder. The whistle just over the bar. And then a couple of minutes later, a real chance for the game to put beyond us when Shamanga picked the ball up on the edge of the area, wriggled into a bit of space, but then, having done so well to give himself a real opportunity, 15 yards out central, clear sight of goal, hit it straight at Leighton. Wrexham responded with 11 minutes left with the decision to throw the kitchen sink at the matter. So Dior Angus came on, Harry Lennon came off. Wrexham was switching to 4 at the back. It was essentially a sort of 4-2-1-3 with a back 4 which contains French and Hosanna trying to get at the pitch like wing backs. The 2 central midfielders were Jordan Davis and Liam McAlinden. That's kind of attacking. And then Mullen was basically playing behind a front 3, and Wrexham really went for it. It didn't really get that much momentum going until the key moment in the 84th minute when we equalised. Tozer's long throws haven't really brought much about yet this season, But in the 84th minute, he hurled one in from the left-hand side, and Chesterfield's defence, which had looked very good, had a bit of a meltdown. Mullen, allowed to run in and attack the ball at the near post, jumped over his marker and planted a powerful header in from 6 yards out at close range, but he did well to get to it, smashing header, and Wrexham, completely against the odds, were level. And how that changed the atmosphere. The crowd were going crazy. Wrexham were really starting to push, and Wrexham finished the game as they started it, on the front foot. This time there wasn't much science or strategy to it. It was just that we had committed men forwards. We couldn't sit on the result of a team like that because we had so many attacking options, and so we kept going. And probably should have won it, ironically. The second minute of added time, another long throw was slung into the near post, touched on, took a ricochet off a defender and fell to Aaron Hayden on the edge of the 6-yard box. He leaned back and went for power, and the ball smashed against the bar and bounced away to safety. Real shame that, because he, from that close in, didn't really have to blast it, I think. So really, frankly, we should have won a game that we really ought to have lost. So strange emotions coming out of that one. Looking at the performances, well, Lainton, bravo. Little rash giving away the penalty, admittedly, but then saved the penalty. Made that good save from Shamanga Lowdown to his left. That was important. In fact, I'd say that Lainton and the back three were probably, for me, the standout performers. The defence did well under pressure. Lennon with his pace to make that saving tackle. Tozer was often isolated with Shamanga. And just as I've said previously about him, he's either able, with his quality and strength, to win the ball, or if Shamanga, a fast striker's pace, beats him to it, he has the ability to hold that player up, not allow them to come inside or beat him, and wait for support, or indeed be patient, engage in close hand-to-hand combats and win the ball back off him. And Hayden as well he's a force of nature, isn't he? Won a lot of good aggressive challenges and often tried to drive forwards, probably in frustration at the midfield weren't able to take the game forwards. When he does that, he tends to be impressive, but then maybe chooses to go a bit too long, so not much came of them, but it showed good intent. The wing-backs, I was impressed by Record, who battled really hard and in the end paid the price and got hurt. Let's hope it's not too serious. He showed a lot of heart and a lot of spirit. On the right-hand side, Ozana had a good debut. When Wrexham were on top of the game, he really caused problems. He was tearing forwards with pace. And the switch to the left-hand side suited him quite well too. He was just able to come inside instead rather than go around the outside. And defensively, he looked perfectly sound. He didn't get exploited. The sub at half-time, of course, was Tyler French, and French also did well, both going forwards and seemed fairly untroubled defensively. So the trio of them had decent games. Midfield, they didn't have such a happy time of it. Jordan Davis, as I said, had a terrific start. He really was wearing his heart on his sleeve. I tell you what, it was the classic hometown player performance. He was hurling himself into everything with such gusto, maybe even possibly trying a little too hard, because it was a very black and white performance. He had some moments of real quality and then some moments where he gave the ball away a bit sloppily and made mistakes. I think it was because he wanted it so much. You've got to love him for it. Yeah, but he didn't have the impact on the game that he would have liked to, certainly. Devontae Redmond is not really suited to that deeper playmaking position. He did well in it at Aldershot, but I think, to be honest, a lot of that was down to the fact that Aldershot were poor and weren't able to put him under pressure, and he had time to pick his passes. Chesterfield were the opposite, especially in the first half, and of course most of Redmond's performance was in the first half. And yeah, the fact that he isn't a physical player, that's not a criticism, that's just a fact. And in that position, his lack of physicality meant he lost the ball sometimes in dangerous areas. But I don't think that's his position at all, to be honest. So I wouldn't want to draw conclusions from that game alone. And then James Jones, who I've always said I think's quality and I like a lot, but this was his least effective game, I think, for us. He struggled to really bring the ball forwards like he normally does. He found himself too deep and had a pretty quiet one. Up front, well, I've said already, I admire their efforts. Mullen got the goal in the end, and fair play to the bloke. 5 goals and 9 starts now. That's quite something. They need better service, though, than what they were receiving in this game. A little mention for Dior Angus, by the way, who his pace just freshened things up a bit in the latter stages. He just went racing after things and just put a little bit of nervousness in Chesterfield's defence, so that was good. Man of the match, I think, would have to be one of the three centre-backs. In the commentary, Neil Williams, James Harrison and I went for Aaron Hayden. I think that's perfectly legit. In a personal context, I think that Tozer might have just pipped him, but I think it would be down to those two, to be frank. They're the obvious choices. And we survived it, but with the last Saturday's game not counting and next Saturday there being no game, we're going to be quite low down the table by the time we get back to football league, to league action in 2.5 weeks. We've got a much more attractive looking run of fixtures, so we need to capitalise upon that. Quick word, by the way. Thank you, Dan, for I admired this beautiful t-shirt. Please, Arvon, no more dunes. I admired it at our last match, and then all of a sudden he turned up and hurled it in my direction. Thank you very much. Another beauty to add to my collection. So thank you very much for that. Right, well, we'll have no football to report until we play Marine now in the FA Cup. So look after yourselves. Keep looking for content anyway. Subscribe, comment, like. Come on, people. Let's do this. And Dragonheart will be out, of course, on Friday. And so with that, I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.